verse 24 says, Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. You know, after his confrontation with the religious leaders, with the Jewish religious leaders, the teachers of the law, Jesus decided to leave that area altogether. And he went to a region of Tyre and Sidon. Now, Tyre is about 35 miles north of Capernaum. And Sidon was about 20 miles further on from that. And Tyre was one of the great harbours of the world. And it was a very wealthy and prosperous place. It was from that region that the first sailors who set sail, who started sailing by the stars, they were from that region, from Tyre. And because they never ever was able to sail at night. They had to literally, could only sail during the day and hug the coastline, because they found this way of navigating by the stars. And that all came from the men at Tyre who learned this. And we see Tyre was quite a famous place in the Old Testament. If you know Scripture, you will know that Solomon made an alliance with Hiram, the king of Tyre, who supplied all the wood and skilled craftsmen to build the temple, while Solomon provided food for the people of Tyre. It was also the place where one of the most wickedest women that have ever lived, you know, can anybody think of who it is?
Jezebel?
Jezebel, absolutely. That's where she came from. Jezebel came from Tyre. You know, she was the great tormentor of Elijah. You know, we can remember the story about I'm going to get you, boy, because he had the 700 prophets of Baal put to death, you know, up on that mountain. You know, and God worked a mighty miracle, and then she said, I'm going to get you. And what does he do? He runs away. I mean, so we're in good company. You know, we're not alone when we get down and when we get, you know, anxious at times. He did as well. And what a mighty man of God he was. But you know, son, God didn't give up on him. He carried on and worked with him and built him up, you know, and he took him into that mountaintop. What did he do? You know, when he was there was a big earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. There was a big fire, God wasn't in the fire. There was a mighty wind, God wasn't in the wind. And God says in a still soul voice, what are you doing here, Elijah? Come on. And you know, that's what God sent to some of us. What are you doing here? Come on. Get back in the fight. Get back in the fight. And you know, Tyre is well, both Tyre and Sidon now is in a country called Lebanon. And that is today. The question is, why did Jesus choose to go to the region of Tyre and Sidon? Because these were Gentile towns. They weren't Jewish. You know, so he's going to a place, you know, where Gentiles are. He's not going to meet Jewish folk there. So why is Jesus going there? Did he go there to do mission work, to do outreach work amongst the Gentiles in that area? Well, that was most certainly the outcome. But whether it was his main purpose, I think it's doubtful. Because it says that he entered a house and he didn't want anyone to know it. Personally, that says to me that Jesus was perhaps wanting some downtime, as it were. Perhaps he wanted to get away from the continual arguments with the religious leaders, or perhaps he just wanted some time to be with the disciples where he could teach them and explain to them about the future and about the times that lay ahead, because the crucifixion was coming up quite fast. One thing we do know was that if that was what Jesus was after, he didn't get it. Because it goes on to say, yet he could not keep his presence secret. Jesus' time of rest and relaxation wouldn't have been very long before he was discovered. And I believe it was Jesus' great love for the lost that allowed himself to be discovered. I'm sure Jesus could have hid perfectly well, but he allowed himself to be discovered. And I think there is a correlation here with Mark 6:34, where Jesus saw the crowd. And what did he do? Jesus had compassion on them. And that's the thing Jesus always had. He always had compassion for people, especially for those who are meek. And Mark was speaking in a literal sense that Jesus could not be hidden. But this can also be true in a figurative sense, because no matter where you go, even in the darkest places in the world, you will find Jesus there. You know, I heard what someone said, that there's only two things, no matter where you go in the world, you'll always find. That Jesus has been there first in Coca-Cola. And it's probably true, because no matter where you go, you'll always find Coca-Cola bottles, won't you? And in verse 25 and 26. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. So what we see is, no sooner had Jesus arrived before he found a person with a need. We don't know how this woman got to hear that Jesus was there, but she knew she had to get to him for her daughter's sake, because she was possessed by a demon. No matter what opposition would come her way, she knew she had to get to Jesus, that only he could help her. And when she found him, what did she do? She fell at his feet. You know, by falling at Jesus' feet, this woman was showing Jesus the utmost respect. But it was so much more for her because of the situation her daughter was in. It was a mark of desperation, for she was pleading with Jesus. And no doubt, like the woman with the issue of blood, she had tried everything. You remember the story where she had that issue? She's spent all her wealth. She'd gone to all these doctors. She tried everything and she couldn't do it. And Jesus was her last hope. And I thought, only I could touch the hem of his garment. And this woman would be like, if only I've tried everything. Nothing worse. And she's heard about Jesus, and she's got faith that he can do something about it. You know, Mark gives us some more details about the woman, who tells us that the woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. Now what we have to understand is that when Mark calls her a Greek, it doesn't mean that she was from Greece. It just means that she was part of the world that had been conquered by Alexander the Great. And what Alexander the Great did, he Hellenized the people. So what happened was that the peoples in those countries would then be forced to speak Greek. So he made them. So that's what he's talking about. So she's not from Greece, she's from Syria Phoenicia. She's from Syria, basically, around that region where she would come. Although it doesn't tell us exactly where. You know, I find it interesting to note that this story falls quickly on the heels after Jesus' confrontation about uncleanness. The Jewish teachers of the law regarded themselves as clean, didn't they? And they showed their unbelief and their unwillingness to pay homage to Jesus. But here we see this pagan woman, who's by all accounts unclean, a Gentile. And what does she do? She comes falling at the feet, paying him homage, begging him to heal her daughter. And she didn't just ask the once. She asked several times, over and over she asked. What faith and determination this woman must have had. She was not going to give up. Even if she got a negative answer, she wasn't going to give up. She was going to stay there until she got her answer. And like the woman we see in Luke 18:5, who kept pleading with her. Remember the story with the judge? She came to the judge for justice and she would never get it. But she kept on coming back and kept on coming back and kept on coming back and kept on coming. And the judge said, I'm going to give her justice. Just to keep her quiet. And maybe there's a bit like that here. She's coming to Jesus and he's asking. But this woman was desperate. For her little girl had a demon and she needed her to be set free. And she wanted that more than anything in the world. And then Jesus gives this answer. First, let the children eat all they want. And I want you to think about this verse. Just think about it for a second. Read this verse. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her. For it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the, what's that say? Dogs? Toss it to the dogs. I don't know about you, but don't you find that a strange thing for Jesus to say? He's in fact calling these people dogs. He's calling this woman dog. I think it's rather harsh and insensitive. Especially to a woman who's seeking help from Jesus. And he answers in this way. So we need to look at this verse and see what actually has been said. You know, we need to understand the culture of the day as well. And how offensive it was to call somebody a dog. That was a major insult. And I suppose it's still true today. You know, if you call someone, oh, you're a dog, you. You know, it's not a nice statement, is it? But, you know, I think we have to understand that the dogs of Jesus' day, they weren't like our dogs that we have, house pets. These were scavenger dogs. So when they called somebody a dog, they were talking about these scavengers, these dogs that would go around eating from the garbage dump, who would eat dead bodies. That's the kind of dogs that we're talking about. They weren't nice dogs. In fact, they were chased out of towns and they would always come. They were like wild dogs. That's the kind of dogs that these people are calling them. And that's what the Jews saw the Gentiles. They're dogs. They're like these scavenger dogs. To the Jews, it was often used as a word of contempt for the Gentiles. They always got the dogs. That's the Gentiles. And it was those kind of dogs. To the Greek, it meant someone with a shamelessness or an audacious woman, much like someone would call somebody a bitch today, like sort of thing. You're a bitch, you know. That's the kind of thing that it would have been said. So it wasn't very nice. So how do we understand Jesus using this terminology to folks?